Aloha and welcome to Java. Thank you kindly for joining me. It is Sunday. It's a bit later. It's July 28th, 2024. We've had quite a bit of censorship going on. Couldn't get this video out, so doing it again. So with that, I've got a lot I want to cover with you. Quite a few topics, very important things going on this week ahead. So let's go right into it. Let's start with the market. So with this next week brings the Federal Reserve decision on interest rates. And we've also got payrolls, JOLTS jobs numbers, listening to Powell's press conference on Wednesday. Earnings season begins with one of the busiest weeks. We've got mega cap earnings, including Microsoft, Apple, Meta, and Amazon. Going to be a very volatile, very interesting week. So with that, let's start with the MMRI. Is at 271, pulled back a bit. Greed heading back towards the greed out of the fear area territory. So we've got the sentiment is retailers looking forward to earnings and Fed cuts, basically. Positive right now, strong mega cap earnings. This is bringing buyers. It looks as the futures are looking green. We had the 10-year and relative strength of the dollar both pulled back. That led to a little bit of breathing room in the very last part of the day on Friday. So what's actually going on? We've got the commodity pulling back a bit. Nickel is now joining copper, as we were speaking about last week, and this is portending a pullback in demand and actual production in the economy. So not actually a very good sign heading towards a recession in the real economy. But let's go back to stocks, because that is really more of a tale of inflation at the moment. So we've got stocks closed higher Friday on rate cut hopes, but right now we've got recent insider buying and selling, the most selling it's had in quite some time. So with this, they're talking about personal income rising less than expected. So in other words, pullback in the incomes, they're saying they've revised sentiment higher. Now, sentiment was also down, but they can't say that because that sounds very negative. So if they say they revised it higher, even though it was awful, it's higher than it was, even though nominally it's still the lowest it was in 8 months. So with this, we're getting the Fed numbers. So are we going to have a September cut? I believe so. I think it's going to be nominal. If so, but we'll see and then go from there. We'll readjust. So we had quite a few Treasury bill purchases. Now, they got called into the carpet by Rubin because there are quite a few other people that are actually paying attention to what's going on. And when they were called out on this as basically being equivalent to cutting rates and juicing the economy is what they're calling it, Janet Yellen came out and said, oh, well, it was not intended as QE. It was not intended to pump the markets, it was not intended to act in this capacity when she knows full well it was. They know very well what they're doing. They're not stupid. So every time they come out and say things that it was not intended like this, they're basically calling everybody else stupid. But some people are paying attention and we know better. Okay. Calendar and earnings quite busy. Nothing on Monday. We're getting JOLTS jobs, as we said. The FOMC is large. This is going to be Wednesday with PMI and some other numbers through the week. We've also got the mega caps coming this week. It's going to be significant. So we'll update you daily. I'm going to be here as much as I can. I may be out a bit or my timing might be off a bit. So we've got stocks going green, a lot of the larger ones, Apple and Google, and Tesla were notably flat, but we've got more coming in this week. So getting into inflation, economy, banks, basically reality, we've got US consumers increasingly tapped out. I'm going to argue that it's not just US consumers, but also in Canada and in Europe, savings being drained, and their wages are no longer keeping up with inflation. 80%, the most recent number survey that they did, basically, about 80% of Americans are one paycheck away from being homeless. They are living paycheck to paycheck, and cannot pay any surprise expenses. It's very frightening. So with this, they're also saying the GDP printed at 2.8%. Wonderful numbers, but they forget to mention that the bulk of that is government spending. So that's not actual production for the United States. It's mostly on the weaponry, funding the military industrial complex. It goes one direction, gets dumped on a bunch of poor, innocent people that spills blood, and then basically our GDP numbers benefit from this. So, moving on, we've got the massive trade propping up the stock market may have collapsed. Okay, this is another thing. Aside from the Treasury bills faking out the Fed cuts and making Fed cuts largely irrelevant in reality, this is the other side. We've got the yen carry trade. Now, I've been speaking about this for a while here. If you're new here, this is basically a large indicator currency war that is going on right now. The Japanese yen dropping in value, and they're trying to prop it up. Now, you have to choose once you get to this point in the currency life cycle. They always end. You have to choose between your economy and the currency, and invariably, the currency goes down. So, heading towards a new system, we've got the current VP with a digital dollar vision. I'm calling this a new era of financial inclusions. Any time you start off with this inclusion garbage, basically frosting it over to something so that it can be wonderful for everybody. You're talking about universal basic income as well as massive government control. So, the likely nominee for president championed an agency that did early work on payment technology and setting the stage for CBDC. So remember this for just a moment, and we'll go into our next stories. We've also got BRICS. In answer to this, they're poised to dominate both World Bank, which is basically US backed, as well as the IMF, which is European Union Bank backed. So we've got the Russian executive director talking about a different way to go about this. So now back to this person, the VP, running. In contrast, we've got Bitcoin 2024. So Michael Saylor's always bold talking about Bitcoin price up to $13 million. He's very bullish. However, the truth is, if it hits 13 million, this price is in dollars. So if we get Bitcoin $13 million and gold, some are calling $5,000 gold, $10,000 and $20,000 gold. If the world hits priced in dollars, gold at those prices, Bitcoin at these prices, it means everything else will be miserable for everyone else who has not realized what is going on and moved their assets out of the US dollar. So I do expect continued dollar strength for a bit. However, buy real assets. We've got Trump to end the war on crypto if elected and saying that the US, he wants it to be the crypto capital. I think it's a bit late for that, but we'll see. He's also pledging to fire Gary Gensler, who is the current SEC chair. He's been throttling it down for quite some time with all of the over-regulation, in my opinion. So, in case you wondered where he stood, RFK Jr. is promising Bitcoin strategic reserve and then changing over basically the dollar backed by hard assets. So he's praising Bitcoin eloquently in a future support and basically going to bring it back to fix broken American money. That's very lightly putting that, in my opinion, and the society. If you have, there's a lot of proof, you have a strong money, not currency, then you have a strong society. Okay, we've got another lawyer trying to unseat Senator Warren, saying his net worth is 82% in Bitcoin. Okay, so strong move towards cryptocurrencies. They're finally realizing how much money and strength is in this relatively silent subsect of society. Yeah, say that 3 times fast. Okay, so back to the VP's campaign. They're aiming to repair their ties with the crypto sector. Now, this is because the current administration has recently proposed a 30% tax on mining, crypto mining in the United States. Do that, you would effectively push it out and kind of crush it for this country. So with this, we've got Senator Loomis. She's always been pro Bitcoin, and she is saying that the United States government should purchase 5% of the total supply. Well, if they did that, it would be massively expensive because they would raise the price on themselves. But if you can just print your own currency, they ought to do it while they can. So I can't really say I disagree with her. So we would basically be purchasing Bitcoin with everybody else's money, the entire world, because we export our inflation. So with this, we're not the only ones. We've got Hong Kong legislator looking at Bitcoin for their fiscal reserves. They've also been stockpiling gold. We've got VanEck saying Bitcoin could hit 2.9 million per coin to year 2050. Again, very bullish. We'll see what happens. But that is large fund. They're backed by the larger ones. Now thinking BlackRock, Fidelity, all of these larger ones, this is what they're saying. They're bringing out ETFs. Don't go for the ETF garbage. Buy the asset itself. Don't let them control it. Buy it yourself and get custody. Okay, enough of my soapbox. We've got what is basically poised to become the main bank in cryptocurrency for the United States. They've passed the regulation tests and they are basically putting politically friendly people on the board. This is just another one. They've also got others from large tech, namely Microsoft AI, on their side. They are poising themselves to become basically the JP Morgan of the crypto industry. Their fees are high, and in my opinion, they've got the worst regulation, KYC, and will have the most control. So I do not like this one necessarily. There's Gemini or Kraken if you're in the United States. If you're outside of the United States, you have many more better options, or peer-to-peer if you're savvy enough. Okay, what is this all driving towards? Right here, global trade to go digital. Global trade, this is everything, not just currency. In the UK and 90 other countries agree to a paperless switch. So advancing and heading towards the tokenization of all assets, commodities, and resources in the future, near future. I'm going to say that one more time because I cannot stress it enough. All assets and commodities and all monies and everything in the future to go tokenized. Okay, let's swap over to the different wars that are going on. We've got intelligence. Constantly have hack attacks. We've got hundreds going on at this very moment. In a minimum, hundreds of attacks going on per moment. So we've got Russian scientists creating self-adapting AI. Now this is basically bad news, not so much because Russia has it, but because this is going to create more of an urgency for the United States companies who are already abandoning safety as it is to push forward in response, because they're only interested, their main focus is getting out as fast as possible and monetizing because they are after money. So with this, I want to mention this really quickly. Deagle reports, not going to go into this here. I'm going to get this out in Discord and then also Substack. Now, thanks to Avira for bringing some of the original. I appreciate you so much and not going to name you unless you would like me to. Want to be cautious about that. So with this, let's go into the physical wars, aside from the currency wars and political hacking cyber attack wars. We've got the Pentagon talking about the Russia-China bombers that patrolled out near Alaska just a day or two ago. Now, Moscow and Beijing saying the exercises were in line with international law, meaning they did not cross into any off-limit territories and they did not violate foreign airspace. So flying close, kind of poking each other like two kids in the backseat. And the United States has been doing this as well. And so has Europe. So they're all doing it. Don't kid yourself. But this is a mild escalation, if you will. We've also got Israel saying that accusing Iran being behind the French rail sabotage that happened directly prior to the Olympics. So they're also saying they're planning terrorist attacks at the Games. I don't doubt that there will be possible terrorist attacks planned, but the blame of Iran is a little suspicious. So with this, we've got more strategic placements happening. I want to talk about Putin warning of mirror response to US missile deployment in Germany. Now, I agree with him, is saying that the West is clinging to a Cold War mentality. So by placing long-range missiles in Germany, it's right off their border, basically. So Russia said they will respond accordingly, take mirror measures to deploy similar systems, long-range systems, taking into account the actions of the United States and its satellites in Europe and other regions in the world. What does this mean? Basically, he's going to park long-range missiles with all of their allies. So US is doing it in Germany and Europe. Putin, it's not just Russia. It's also Cuba, which is just off the shores of Florida in the United States. North Korea, which of course South Korea and Japan are in dire trouble there. Also controls in Iran, Syria. China, of course, ties with South America and ties in South Africa. So this is global. And I think it's a little bit of fire that's being messed with here. So in response, we've got the United States to revamp its command in Japan, trying to get a hold on the Asian front. So restructuring their defense ties, they're placing a 3-star flag officer in charge of the American forces in Japan. And I get asked this a lot. Well, how does this affect me and what has this got to do with the markets? Well, you'll find out the day they fire a missile and then the stock plummets. So it's good to keep an eye on what is going on macro view. And then you're not one of the hundreds of people that I see, sadly, as soon as something happens, start asking what's going on when it's too late. So I'd like to keep you all abreast of this. I appreciate you all for being here. On one final note, I know this has gone on long, but it's going to be a very wild week. And for myself personally as well, got a few things going on. I will be here as much as I possibly can prior to the markets open, but my timing might be a bit more off than normal. So I will do my best. I don't know what my connection will be like, quality or availability, but I will do my best to at least keep up in Discord and also on X. I've got links to a lot of the things I'm speaking about in the description. So much love to all of you, and until I see you again, my friends, stay free.